Hello everyone and welcome to our OT webinar. The topic of today's session is securing operational technology in the age of digital transformation. Let's wait a bit more till everybody can join and we'll move on with the webinar. Okay, so let's continue. We are SSH Communication Security, and we're very excited with the opportunity to discuss the importance of cybersecurity for OT customers when it comes to the adoption of digital services. My name is Eduardo Giancristoforo, and I'm the Channel Partner Director for OT at SSH. I am your host and one of the panelists of this webinar. Today's event will start off with a presentation of each one of the three panelists, myself included. Alongside myself, I'm honored to be joined by two experts in the area, starting with Tony Hakkanen, Chief Architect of IT/OT at UPM, calling from Finland. And also calling from Finland, we have Joni Huttunen from Fujitsu. Joni is the lead technology advisor for enterprise and cybersecurity at his company. Each one of us will have the opportunity to introduce ourselves and quickly go over our backgrounds as we present. On the second part of this webinar, we will have a panel discussion of 15 minutes about three specific topics. And at the end, we'll finalize with a 15-minute session of questions and answers. So please use your chat to send your questions to our group. We hope you enjoy our conversation. At this point, I am supposed to tell you about my background, but instead, let me combine that information with what I learned throughout the years about digital transformation. Since 1994, I have witnessed the evolution of industrial controls equipment and network protocols, up until its most recent revolution, named Industry 4.0 or the Industrial Internet of Things. To me, digital transformation is all about collaboration. With technology advancements, it became evident the increasing technical complexity to maintain systems as the required skill set expanded into several new controls disciplines that did actually not exist back when I started, like, for example, motion controls, safety controls, MES software, and etc. To deal with this challenge, end users require more collaboration with their vendors in order to efficiently maintain their assets and keep them with optimum performance and uptime. And the essence of the collaboration is data and access sharing. So about our company, SSH Communication Solutions. We are a Finnish company and one of the pioneers in cybersecurity worldwide. Our story starts in 1995 with the development of the SSH protocol by our founder, Tatu Ilonen. The protocol became essential for the development of e-commerce and is still highly used to this day on different sectors, including financial, banking, governmental, retail, and so on. Throughout this period, we established a customer base of over 5,000 customers, including companies such as Walmart, Western Union, OCBC Bank, Disney, and many, many others. So what do we do then? In a nutshell, SSH is dedicated to data protection, both data in motion and at rest. From a single email between two people or all the way up to large amounts of data being exchanged between data centers, SSH has solutions to protect all kinds of connections between people, systems, and applications. The topic of the day is about access control, also called as PAM or Privileged Access Management. And for that, we have our Zero Trust Suite and its component named Privix OT, which basically acts as a digital gatekeeper. SSH continues to push the boundaries of technology and already has implemented post-quantum encryption in most of our solutions, as our objective is to keep our customers safe for now and in the future. Quantum computers are still not a reality, but that doesn't mean that customers shouldn't start worrying about that right now. If you're curious, please contact us for more on that. We also have technology partnerships with other companies and technical institutions, and one good example of that is the CHARM project. CHARM is an European Union consortium dedicated to the development of industrial IoT solutions with the goal of making those more connected and secure. Let's take a look at some recent news on OT cybersecurity. Manufacturing keeps growing as the preferred target for cybercrimes. It's undeniable that this fact is driven by the high levels of security found in other sectors, such as banking and retail, when compared to OT systems. Ransomware attacks to OT systems are on the rise, with twice as many events in 2022 than the previous year. Losses are projected to increase more than 10 times in the next 10 years. And OT devices are still far from the security levels commonly found in IT systems. In summary, there is enough motivation for those companies who still haven't invested in cybersecurity solutions to accelerate the adoption of this defensive technology. So in our vision, what actually OT customers care about? The needs of the operational technology customers are somewhat different from the usual IT cybersecurity users. Safety is paramount to operations, and that includes the protection of the end user's staff, since malfunctions in the production processes may cause physical harm for those who are around them. Also, their customers, in the case where the result of the production or transformation is sent straight to consumers, such as water plants. In the case of productivity, OT systems are designed to a certain production capacity. Nothing gets oversized, as the cost of industrial controls equipment is very high. As a natural consequence, industrial users aim for productivity and efficiency of at least 95%, otherwise there is no profit being made. In the security area, customers need to take in consideration the lack of features for protection of OT devices and the amount of legacy systems. Therefore, it is very common to find equipment with just a single password and no user at all, or even not that, if much. And those are typically shared with everyone that is supposed to have access to those assets, making things even worse. And finally, compliance. Of course, industrial users also need to abide by certain standards. So, access management is the key cybersecurity component to allow for the full adoption of digital services. PAM solutions are very popular. However, there are differences between what a typical PAM can provide and the demands of OT customers. The feature set provided by our solution, Privix OT, is a combination of resources that can adapt to any manufacturing or infrastructure system without compromising the flexibility required for potential changes in the future. For example, the use of zero trust architecture to limit user access with just-in-time, just enough access, and role-based access. The capacity to integrate with the other components of the software environment, like Active Directory, SOC, and CM. Flexibility, you should be able to install it anywhere, on cloud or premise or both. Access to the system through web or client software based on your preference, and especially the different types of access methods required for full collaboration. For example, the capacity of programming applications to connect to PLCs remotely without use of a jump host to avoid forcing end users sharing their computers with third-party users. That is only achieved by supporting industrial protocols. And also the capacity to audit all connections with video recording capabilities and real-time monitoring. And finally, support large-scale, full plant and multi-site applications. So I'm now heading over to Tony Hakkinen from UPM. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eduardo. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And first, before we go to the topic, I want to say that we are customer to SSH and they are not paying for this. And I'm happy to return a favor because I'm always getting one. Good service from SSH. So that's the reason I'm here talking about security in OT. I'm a chief IT/OT architect in UPM IT. So I'm an IT guy working with OT a long time, already 30 years in UPM. So last 4 years in the current position, I would say that the main task what I'm doing is now leading our IT/OT cooperation forums. I organize those. I coordinate with our IT teams on the background that how and what should be done with our IT services so that they are really supporting our OT side and our production sites. And I'm really passionate about this one. I get a good feedback from the teams locally, and I have seen that it takes a long time, years to gain the trust from the OT guys. And if you are an IT guy in this meeting, so yeah, you need to keep that up. You need to be contacting them and happily discussing the topics with them, agreeing and doing together. So that's the key to success here. And what I'm trying to do, I'm actually trying to create a culture for this kind of cooperation. It seems that it's not natural. It needs time, and we are still in a bit different worlds with the IT and OT. But that's definitely something that we are getting good benefits out of this sort of cooperation and this kind of common services and the teams even in this area. Yeah, briefly about UPM. This is not a company presentation, but we do have more than 50 large production plants around the globe. All of our businesses are based on bioproducts. We use wood as a raw material in many cases. We, for example, plant 4 trees when we are cutting one. So that's one thing that we are growing the forests, but we are gaining the business benefits out of those ones. That's our core asset that we have. And we are already now sort of calling ourselves beyond the fossils. That's something that we can say. And maybe if we go now to the OT world, this is our challenge. Our businesses are actually even competing with each other, and they are in very different stages of their lifetime. We have, for example, paper business now optimizing the costs, trying to survive. That's the main target for them. And they have been doing that for some years already. But in the beginning, like we have these biofuels, biochemicals, they are the new plants. We can easily build those. We can optimize those with IT, and the setup is totally different for those. But paper, they optimized the production for 30 years, invented all kinds of systems to keep the mills running faster and faster. But yeah, then the OT. We have around 300 OT team members globally. They are focusing on their own areas, supported by IT solutions. And with those mills, we have around 5,700 devices that we manage with our tools. And all of those are then identified. We have assets in all of those. And then we also provide services from IT to these field devices, these managed devices, patching, malware protection, hardening setups, so on. And we always want to make inventories out of those so that we can manage also our licenses in a compliant way. And to make that successful, we always, for example, discuss with the vendors that when you come to us, we try to deploy, and we mostly can, our standard set of tools for this cybersecurity. And that's the key to get the visibility into those devices. And I want to say to you, if you can do the same, you can then measure how good is your security level. And if you can measure that one, you can report that one. And if you start comparing the businesses, if you compare the sites, then you get the attention from the top management. And that's key for our success. But yeah, we done that already a long time ago. Now we are doing more segregation, controlling the traffic, doing virtual patching. We are doing micro-segmentation. But all of that we are doing still together with the OT teams because they are the ones owning the systems. So that's the key to our success. All right. Thank you. That was UPM in short.
Thank you very much, Tony. Now we're going to have on the floor Joni Hiltunen from Fujitsu. Joni, it's your turn.
Well, thank you very much for your time and attention. And what I'm going to talk a little bit about is the question that whether the OT and the IT are really separate different things. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about challenges for information and cybersecurity in the OT environments. And finally, I'm going to talk about the view of the Fujitsu as what we think that the OT and the OT security should actually look like. And very often when we talk about OT and OT security, we treat it as completely separate from the IT because the systems and the infrastructure has been purchased by the separate entities, usually by the operational organizations. They are maintained by the separate entities. They are owned, and of course, if they are owned by outside of the IT organization, then the security risk that is provided by the OT technology must be owned and handled by the separate organization. Unfortunately, OT cannot be separated from the IT and the IT risk management because the data flow from the factory floor to the enterprise management systems, it's global, it's real time, and it is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. They have real euro and dollar cost if they are interrupted. So, little bit about Fujitsu. Fujitsu is a major provider of ICT and telecom sectors worldwide, and as part of that, we are providing security services in IT as part of our IT offering and also as part of our OT offering. But not only is Fujitsu an ICT service house, we are a company with 90 years of manufacturing experience, and Fujitsu is actually operating 20 different manufacturing plants around the world. So one of our strategic areas is sustainable manufacturing and also security. I am, as mentioned, the lead technology advisor for the Fujitsu Finland's now called Defense and Security Department. My background is that I was trained as a mechanical engineer, and I started my career as a design engineer in industrial environments. But on year 2000, I moved into the IT world and started doing both security planning, security testing, and security incident response. So let's take a look a little bit about OT environments, because unless you know what you are securing, it is impossible to secure anything. And we divide OT environments into three very different kind of operating models. What most people are thinking about is the heavy process industries. If we talk about steel foundries, UPMs, paper mills, or large utility companies, these place heavy emphasis on the real-time and accurate measurement and control systems. And in some cases, uh, the limitations placed by the demands of the process control are so heavy that the length of a cable from measurement device into your control box has to be certain sized. So mostly in these cases, the highest risk areas is the data flow between the measurement device and the actuator or the industrial control system. And security monitoring and security response must act in very close cooperation with the process control engineers and the process control room of the industrial site, because they are the ones who have to make the actual operational decisions on what to do in security incident cases. Simple case is that on the IT side, if we decide to reboot the server to take care of a security problem, that is doable. On the heavy process side, those decisions cannot be taken by security personnel. The second industrial model is the just-in-time or Kanban method, which is used. We also call this the workshop method of manufacturing, in which case heavy emphasis is placed primarily on the inventory and inventory management and the correct delivery and sending information, because unless you have the means and methods and the material to produce the required batches, then this has direct impact on your bottom line. And in differentiating from the process industry, the actual machinery and automation and, for example, measuring tools and quality control systems here, they are not quite as time relevant and time critical. So there is a little bit of room there, but in this case, we are protecting the measurement flow of the or the flow of the information from your ordering system into your ERP and sending system or material control system. And finally, we have the old-fashioned linear manufacturing model, where we are working with this traditional manufacturing lines, and heavy emphasis is placed on the accuracy of the automation system, the configuration, and the operational model of the robots and quality control systems. But in each one of these cases, the flow from the factory floor into the enterprise control systems offers great opportunities for efficiencies and finding the money that is in your inventory or quality control system or the efficiency of your supply line. And these are global, and in the more and more we are starting to see the big data analysis and the artificial intelligence models to go and find ways to save money and to make the process more efficient. Well, how in each case, how does the system look like? And as mentioned here, there is a separating barrier between the OT factory floor level and the corporate IT level, and it usually goes on the IP protocol. So anything operating on the IP protocol level operates on the corporate environment, and anything below that is usually industrial control system, barring industrial automation control machines and stuff that needs to be close to the factory floor. But the Purdue model is very efficient in showing us where the dividing lines should be. And usually also the ownership of the assets is divided between the operational organization is operating and controlling the OT below the Purdue level 3, and then there is the IT system that is controlling it beyond that. But on the architectural level, what you need to have is the separation of and control of traffic through the firewall and traffic control systems. And in most cases, you need a demilitarized zone between the IT and the OT environments to make sure that, for example, the industrial control system and the quality control data and all the other stuff can be safely collected before sending it to the, for example, the SAP. And uh, in each one of these cases, the equipment that has been used to build it may or may not have a very efficient security access control and authorization control measures. Usually not, because lead time to renewing equipment is long in industrial environments, and this can be 15 to 20-year-old PCs or control systems. In those cases, what you need is the efficient access control, usually with privilege access management methods that separates the corporate IT environments and only offers controlled access to the lower level devices. It can also be utilized to provide access to maintenance and integration service providers who are taking care of your manufacturing line or equipment, because quite often before the access was provided with ad hoc, like TeamViewer solutions, or specifically set up remote desktops that provided access to through VPNs. What we need is centralized and controlled access to each and every user, where policies can be enforced and audit trail can be maintained. And also, the microsegmentation has already been mentioned. On the factory floor level, unfortunately, you cannot prevent all security incidents, so you must make sure that they are contained to the minimum effect that they are having. So separating either into different VLANs or virtual VLANs, the functional entities, for example, a simple for your storage operations or your simple single robot station, so that a problem there does not go to the other segments of your network. And the next thing that we are going to see is that because integration providers and subcontractors are starting to provide entire manufacturing lines or entire robot stations, which are simply doing the physical things, but they are not part of the operating environment. So they shouldn't be in your company's network unless they are maintained by your companies. So emerging technologies like 5G and private industrial networks offers a possibility that the subcontractor maintaining your manufacturing line is also able to do the network control, only providing you access to the MES data that you need for your daily operations. Other than that, I'm ready to move on. Thank you for your attention.
We would like to hear your take. We have a poll on your screen. I unfortunately don't have it in front of me, but you're going to see a question with multiple answers. You can answer directly on the boxes or the check boxes you see there. Feel free to do that on the next 20 seconds. And we're going to see some statistics about those answers, and your opinion really matters to all of us here. So let's wait a little bit for that. All right. Laurie, are you able to read the result from your end?
Yes. So we can see that the biggest challenges are now security risks. And now it actually already changed it and moved to outdated systems. So outdated systems and security risks are top two challenges we can see. There is third answer is cultural differences. There is also, but looks like by voting, updated systems is the number one challenge, and also security risks.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Laurie, and thank you everyone for participating on the poll. So let's move on to the next slide and the first question to the panel. So I'll consider that we're on the right screen here.
Yes.
So here's the first topic for the panel discussion, which is about the role of cybersecurity in the IT-OT convergence. Each end user is at a different stage of the IT-OT convergence. There are many factors that can impact on how fast these technologies get implemented, so end users can take full advantage of the benefits brought by the integration between IT and OT. As a result, many companies are being driven by to use less secure solutions on an emergency basis, like we saw on the Florida water case, where TeamViewer was used and left running. The first question to our guests in the panel is, what are the best strategies to mitigate risks and expedite implementation? And how do you see the current state of digital services adoption? Let's start with Tony from UPM.
Yeah, thanks, Eduardo. If I now even take that questionnaire that you had there, that the outdated systems is the biggest, let's say, hindrance to move forward, I would actually a bit like to disagree with that one, because we have quite good tools which we can, for example, connect into legacy devices. We can gateways, we have tunnels which we can use even with the modern network setup, so that the IT is not within those legacy devices. We can still create tunnels for connectivity. We can still create access into those ones. We can even protect the devices and the underlying networks with sort of security solutions that don't mean upgrading everything, because we have seen that that's impossible. So I would ask you not to wait for that one, that you can renew your systems, the control systems. That's something that you would need to live with. But you can more or less try to adapt and bypass the limitations of those. That's totally possible. It comes also to data, but it also works on the security aspects, and that's definitely doable. And the layout, if you think of the IAC 62443, that's definitely something that still is possible with the legacy environment.
Thank you very much, Tony. Now, I'd like to hear from Yoni on this topic.
Most efficient strategy to mitigate the risk is to force to take ownership of the risk, and the ownership of the risk belongs to the organization or the person who owns the asset. So, as in any security management, If the owner of the asset is not aware of the risk, then the security specialists are not doing their job. If the owner of the asset is aware of the risk but chooses to ignore it, well, that is on them. So, as security professionals, it is our job to make absolutely clear what are the security risks to the owners of the assets in both IT and OT environments.
Thank you very much, Yoni. I agree, and just a comment. Yes, especially on what Tony said before. Definitely, we should not hold our breath until we expect industrial equipment to be as secure as IT equipment. Things move in a different pace. Equipment is built to last for 10, 20 years. So the approach is completely different, and definitely there are better ways to protect from that without worrying too much in terms of implementations by the vendors. So let's move on to the next question. And in the meantime, I want to remember the audience to keep posting their questions on our chat window for the Q&A session at the end. But this is about the IEC 62443 standard. That is part of the a bigger scope IEC standard that addresses the security requirements for industrial controls systems, and it provides the guidelines for implementing security measures to protect the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of the data. Several key topics are covered, including access control. The questions for our panelists are: how did the standard help you or your customers when it comes to remote access? And what is the approach that you recommend to this standard, especially for those who are here with us and that are just starting to face this challenge? Let's start again with Tony.
Yeah, thanks. I think this standard is sort of first of all, it's not something that you would start reading. It's something that you need to understand, and there are a lot easier ways to go into that one. Good recommendations are already existing, and the standard itself, when simplified, it creates you a sort of a cornerstone for the security setup that you can then communicate internally, but also you can communicate that to the external vendors, for example. And when you have this kind of requirements presented in a sort of formal way that now we would like to follow this standard, how do you comply? Do you see risks here? Are you compliant with this one? Does your solution, for example, support this kind of approaches? That creates already a very good starting point for you, and you can then sort of lead the discussion in the direction that you actually are then already giving good guidelines, architecture, for example, to the vendors, and quite often they are fully compliant with that one already. So that's something to be used for discussions with the vendors, for example.
Thank you very much, Tony. Now, Yoni, can you give us your take on this?
Standards are not manuals. I mean, you can implement your security management system or your OT security system 100% compliant and applicable to the standard, but still have very high rate of security incidents and very high cost of your security. So standards for me are tools to ensure interoperability and compatibility, and in some cases compliance to regulations. But first you need to know what you need to be doing security-wise. Then you can do it according to the standard.
Thank you, Yoni. That is very clarifying. And yes, there's still a lot of confusion about how those standards can be used and should be used. So this is very valuable information. Let's move to the next poll that we have. So the question now is, what are the most important factors to consider when choosing a remote access solution for OT systems. For you that are here with us on this webinar today, are you mostly concerned about? Is it about the security? Is it about reliability, performance, scalability, or ease of use? Again, feel free to choose more than one option. That's totally fine. Let's wait for a few seconds to see the statistics as the answers come up. So for now, yeah, security is leading the polls. And definitely reliability seems to be almost as important as security. So thank you for your participation on this poll. Let's move on then to the third and final question to the panelists. This is about access control solutions. So coming from an OT background, I can tell you that even for those customers that still did not adopt a modern access control solution yet, the idea of remote access is not unheard of. In some specific industries, due to the nature of having remotely located sites and even unassisted sites, like water pump stations that are near rivers, or pipelines, or small offshore platforms that are completely unmanned, those situations forced part of the OT end customers to adopt some sort of remote access solution using technologies from the past. What would our panelists say for those customers about their experience with modern access control technologies in terms of what makes a solution secure and future-proof? Let's again start with Tony.
Yeah, thanks. Uh, First of all, I think we are moving quite fast in this area of identifying users, and seems to be a lot of different ways you can do sort of identification. That's definitely something that we have used. We are using guest accounts, for example, to help our vendors to use our systems. They can use their own accounts in that one. We also see that this kind of, let's say, passwordless identification is clearly coming. Um, and then if I mention maybe the more traditional ones is that we really identify the users. We can see what they are doing or what they have been doing. And we can even limit those in a sort of role-based access like Privex is already doing that. That's clearly something that it flexes. It enables a lot of different ways to allow the connectivity into us. And of course, the network security is there. I still feel that those production sites, for example, they will be own entities, and we are closing those more and more and still enabling this kind of access.
Thank you very much, Tony. Yoni, I'd like to hear your opinion on that as well.
Well, quite often we are trying to solve two problems. One is identity management, so that in organization or use case, we have identities who are joiners, movers, or leavers in roles of that organization, and we need to provide access control solutions to those identities. And any access control solution that you use must have ironclad coupling into your identity management, so that you are able to grant and control the access through the identity management system. Because if you are trying to do it outside of that, then these two are out of sync, and you are always trying to catch up with the actual authorized access and the one that is configured into your access control.
Thank you, Yoni. So we are now moving on to the third and final section of our webinar today. So, which is the question and answer session. So we already have a few questions here on the chat. Please keep sending those. I found two at least here that are very interesting, and somewhat I'd like to share with the group. There's a question by Antoine Masson, which says, "What are the connections between ISO 27001 and the IEC 62443 standard families?" Or maybe the question would be, are there any connections between those two standards, or do they deal about completely different things? Maybe it would be a great idea to hear from both our panelists. So let's start with Tony.
Well, I would say that the 62443, that is the sort of a cornerstone for security features and functionalities, and it allows you to select the level that you want to be. The ISO 2701, I'm not so familiar with that one, but I assume that that is more wider scope of standard and also then the certified way to be compliant. So that's a bit different at least.
Okay, thank you very much. Ioni, you want to add any comment to that?
Well, ISO 27001 is a standard and framework for managing information security. So it doesn't necessarily ever leave your computer or your network or your even your physical papers. It is simply a way to handle the information security risk against your a security risk against your information. The 62443 is managing the. I would call it more of a way to ensure the continuity of business operations in industrial environments. And in both cases, information security is a big part of it. So they need to be compatible on the way that they handle information security, but they cover a little bit different spheres of influence.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. The next question would be about that's actually sent by Eka Westman. And the question is the ownership issue related to culture issues? I presume that ownership is about who owns the cybersecurity solution. Is it owned by the end user? Is it owned by a service provider, maybe a managed service provider that would be working with that end user? In my opinion, I've seen both sides, both preferences, but I think will be really enriching to hear Tony and Ioni takes on this. So let's start with Tony. Do you think there is the ownership topic is totally related to company cultural issues?
Well, it is definitely related to that one, but I would see it in a way that IT is clearly here to sort of highlight the risks and also bring up the importance and sort of consequences possibly in the security area. Whereas the OT teams and the OT system owners, they are the one who really know how to use those, how to drive the mill or production forward. And I believe these two are with different roles. And the ownership, in my view, always remains within the OT teams who own the systems. IT can be accountable for the security setting, but not really responsible for doing that. Because the ownership and the responsibility, it remains within the OT teams.
Thank you. Ioni, you would like to share any comments on that one?
Yeah, I would say that it would be wonderful if we could say that the profitability of the company is the responsibility of the chief financial officer, or the quality of the product is the responsibility of the quality assurance team. But the reality is that these belong to every level of every level of the organization, and the specialists in the financial or CFO's organization or the quality organization or the cybersecurity or IT organizations are there to provide the methods and the tools that this can be achieved, but the final responsibility of reaching secure operations or profitability is within the company organization itself.
Thank you, Yoni. I'd like to move to one more question. We keep hearing about new and up and coming technologies such as 5G, and 5G is getting a huge attention more and more as a definitive wireless type of technology in terms of being a solution for problems that can only be solved through wireless connections. How do you see the adoption of technologies such as 5G as a potential additional threat in the future for OT systems? Tony, what's your take on that?
Well, I believe there are different ways to implement 5G or LTE networks. And when you talk about the private networks, you can deploy those as sort of an internal part of the network. And the security measures in those are something that I also don't know the details, but I assume that they are fulfilling the basic requirements of connection security, identifying the devices, and then securing that only those ones are the one to connect. But if you follow the sort of public network, of course, that is then the discussion with sort of providers that how are they handling the connections and connectivity and how do you link that to your site? Because of course you can open up too much or too little for those connections.
All right, thank you. Yoni, what's your opinion on that?
5G poses a big question on your company's data network architecture, because theoretically it is possible to build the entire data transfer of your company on 5G technology and ditch the wireless and even large parts of the cable. But what you need to ask yourself is that is the information network strategy of my organization a 5G backbone into which local networks are attaching, or is it this traditional local wide area network backbone into which 5G networks are attaching themselves? So it's doable, but again, you need to have a clear goal to know that to know how to implement it in a controlled and secure manner.
Thank you, Yoni. I agree with both of you, and there's something interesting that Tony brought up on his the beginning of his comment, which is yes, 5G is not just one thing. The 5G we have on our phone doesn't necessarily mean it's the 5G that industrial customers will be willing to use or that are excited to use in the future to solve their problems. It's actually mostly devoted to having higher speeds wireless networks that can fulfill applications that 4G and all the other wireless technologies such as Bluetooth and Zigbee couldn't because of lack of throughput. So, for example, motion control systems that you can find easily on any automotive plant, they require very short response times, and there's no existing older wireless technology that can provide that performance. So I do believe that it will be treated, especially in the case of private 5G networks, as any other internal or local network would be. Therefore, in that case, there wouldn't be any threats whatsoever. All right, we are approaching the end of our session, but we still have one important message to go. So we talked about directives and regulations here, but besides IEC 62443, you can also check our take and white paper on the NIS2 directive by downloading a guide named Securing Communications for NIS2 Compliance. Lori, our communications lead, will post the link to this document on the chat window so you can all have access. And in case you lose it, feel free to contact any of us for getting access to that document. So we are very close to the top of the hour here. I would like to, first of all, thank Tony Hakkanen and Joni Hiltunen for joining us. It's a pleasure to hear from people with a lot of experience, and actually that in the case of Tony, that has experience with our product as an end user, so you can all enjoy a transparent opinion and how each company is approaching the cybersecurity challenges when it comes especially to access control. I would like to again incentivize everybody that has been here, and obviously above it all, thank you for everyone that registered and is present at this webinar. We are going to follow up with all of you, and we hope to establish an open door in case you want to keep asking more questions, maybe get to know our products better. So this, I hope this is just the beginning of a relationship with each one of you. Thank you very much for your presence, and I wish to every one of you a great rest of your day.